2 days after I signed a check for $80,000 to pay for my son's wedding, the restaurant manager called me. His voice was shaking. "Mr. Barnes, please don't put this on speaker. We were reviewing the security footage from the VIP room. You need to see this yourself. Come alone, and whatever you do, don't tell your wife." I'm Elijah Barnes, 70 years old. I built a logistics empire from one rusted truck to a fleet of 300. I thought I'd seen everything. Nothing prepared me for what was about to happen. That morning I was at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, watching my wife of 40 years, Beatrice, arrange flowers and hum a gospel tune. The wedding the day before had been perfect. My son Terrence had married Megan, and I'd handed them the deed to our lake house, $500,000, free and clear. Terrence cried. Megan smiled, but the smile never reached her eyes. She'd glanced at Beatrice across the room, not gratitude, but confirmation, victory. Then my phone rang. It was Tony, the restaurant manager. I told Beatrice it was the pharmacy, some mix-up with my prescription, and drove myself to the Gilded Oak. Tony was pale, sweating, pacing by the dumpsters. He led me to a security office and played the footage. 11:45 p.m., the night of the wedding, the VIP lounge after everyone had gone. Beatrice walked in, not with her usual faked limp, but striding, alive. She popped a bottle of champagne and poured 2 glasses as Megan entered, still in her wedding dress, heels off. "To the stupidest man in Atlanta," Megan said, and drank. Beatrice laughed, a sound I'd never heard from her. "To Elijah, the goose that lays the golden eggs." I sat frozen as they talked. The lake house was just an asset to liquidate in 6 months. Megan complained about pretending to love my son. Then Beatrice said something that stopped my heart. The family trust, $20 million, unlocked the moment a biological grandchild was born. Only she and I knew those terms. How did Megan know them? "The old man is blind," Megan said. "He sees what he wants to see." Then she asked how much longer she'd have to wait before I retired permanently. Beatrice looked almost directly into the camera and said it plainly. She'd switched my heart medication 3 weeks earlier. She'd been crushing digoxin into my morning smoothie. A little every day. It would look like natural heart failure. I sat in that dark office. A man who'd just learned his wife was poisoning him. His daughter-in-law was a fraud, and his son was being played for a fool. Worse, Megan let slip that the baby wasn't Terrence's. It belonged to her personal trainer, Chad. And then Beatrice added the final blade. Terrence wasn't my son either. He was Pastor Silas's, my best friend, the man who'd married us, baptized my boy, prayed over my table every Sunday for 30 years. Tony grabbed my arm before I could smash the monitor. "If you destroy this, you destroy your only advantage," he said. "Go home now, and they'll say you're senile. They'll say the video's fake. They'll bury you before you can prove anything." He was right. I had spent 40 years negotiating with men who wanted to destroy me. I knew how to survive a war. I just never thought the battlefield would be my own kitchen. I called my lawyer, Sterling, a shark in a Chanel suit who'd handled every hostile deal I'd ever made. "Open a file," I told her. "Codename Omega. Freeze everything, quietly. And get me a forensic toxicologist. I think I'm being poisoned." Then I drove home to die. Beatrice handed me my smoothie the moment I walked in. I lifted it to my lips, let it fill my mouth, and spat every drop into a napkin hidden in my hand. A trick I'd learned decades ago, drinking with union bosses I didn't trust. I faked exhaustion, went to the recliner, and 30 minutes later, collapsed to the floor, gasping, convulsing, still. Beatrice didn't call 911. She didn't even check my pulse. She kicked me, twice, hard, to see if I'd flinch. Then she called Megan. "The fish has bitten. He's not moving. Get over here. Bring the binder, the medical power of attorney, the DNR." Terrence arrived crying, wanting to call an ambulance, until Megan slapped him. "If you call now, he might live. Do you want to be poor forever?" Beatrice knelt beside me and pressed a forged DNR into his hands, telling him it was my wish, that calling for help would be going against me. My son chose the lie. He signed a false timestamp claiming he'd just found me. He became an accomplice to my murder. I let them stand over my body for as long as I could stand it. Then I coughed, violent, explosive, and sat up, blinking, confused, waking from my fainting spell. Their faces went white. Beatrice recovered fastest, sobbing with relief that was pure rage. I played the disoriented old man and announced, right there, that the near-death experience had shown me it was time to let go, to name one sole heir and hand over the entire estate the following Sunday, at church, in front of everyone. I watched greed reshape the room instantly. Beatrice, Megan, and Terence stopped being partners and became competitors, exactly as I intended. That week I built my case. I stole a hairbrush from Terence's bathroom. I lifted Pastor Silas's coffee cup, mid-sermon prep, under the pretense of a coughing fit. I drove both samples, plus the poisoned napkin, to a lab I'd funded for years. 4 hours later, the doctor came back pale. The napkin held a lethal, execution-strength dose of digoxin, and the DNA was conclusive. Silas was Terence's biological father, 99.9%. I felt something in my chest turn to stone. 32 years raising another man's son, while that man ate at my table and called me brother. I met Megan alone at a coffee shop, wearing a hidden camera disguised as a tie pin. I offered her $500,000 to stay loyal to Terence. She laughed in my face. She wanted everything, she said. All $20 million in the offshore accounts she'd somehow discovered. And when I balked, she threatened to accuse me of sexual assault if I didn't sign my whole estate directly to her, cutting out both Beatrice and Terence. I agreed to everything, apologized, begged her not to ruin my name, all while the recorder in my collar caught every word. That Wednesday night I sat in the back pew of First Baptist and listened to Silas preach about the sanctity of family and the purity of bloodlines, Beatrice glowing in the front row like a saint. Afterward, I told him, almost idly, that Terence was starting to look just like him. He didn't panic. He smiled, smug, certain I was too senile to understand, and told me that sometimes when a spiritual father prays hard enough, God molds the clay in his image. He was gloating. I handed him a $50,000 check and asked him to make sure every screen in the church and the live stream was working perfectly for Sunday's transfer of power. He agreed instantly, already spending the money in his head. On Saturday, I froze every account in the family's name. Beatrice called in a panic. I told her the bank had detected a hacking attempt traced to Megan's laptop, a lie that turned the two women against each other overnight. I promised $1 million cashier's check at the ceremony to smooth things over, and they believed me, because greed always believes what it wants to hear. That same night, through a cracked window, I heard Terence on the phone with Megan, agreeing that if the check didn't clear, they'd finish what they started, with pills, in my tea. Any last doubt about my son died right there. Sunday came. The church was packed, cameras rolling, the sanctuary standing room only. Beatrice sat in the front row in a wide white hat, playing devoted wife. Megan held Terence's hand, hiding her nerves in a modest dress. Silas, glowing in his robe, welcomed me to the pulpit like a hero. I thanked them all for their love. I told them I'd spent the week watching my family, and that I'd seen wonderful things, and terrible things. Then I said it was time for the video tribute Sterling had prepared. The screen lit up. Not family photos, security footage. Beatrice's voice, magnified through $50,000 of church sound equipment. To the stupidest man in Atlanta, the goose that lays the golden eggs. I switched his heart medication 3 weeks ago. The congregation didn't understand at first. Then they did. Beatrice shot up screaming that it was fake, AI, a dying man's delusion. I told her to sit down and watch. Next came the audio from the cafe. Megan's voice threatening to accuse me of assault if I didn't sign everything to her. Gasps of disgust rippled through the pews. Then the kitchen footage. Beatrice, humming Amazing Grace, while grinding pills into my smoothie, telling someone on the phone she'd put a double dose in. Then the paternity results, blown up 20 feet high for the whole congregation and the live stream to see. Terence Barnes, biological father. Silas Jenkins, 99.9%. And beneath it, the prenatal test. Megan's baby, biological father, not Terence. A man named Chad, 99.9%. The sanctuary became chaos. Deacons blocked Silas from bolting out the side door. Beatrice sat catatonic, her soul laid bare in front of 500 witnesses and a live stream of thousands. Megan screamed and clawed at her own face. Terence collapsed to his knees in the aisle, begging his mother to tell him it was a lie. She said nothing. Her silence was the confession. I looked down at my son, the boy whose bike I'd taught him to ride, whose hand I'd held through chickenpox and college applications, and I told him the truth plainly. He wasn't my blood, and worse, he wasn't loyal. A son doesn't watch his father die on the floor and sign a false timestamp to cover it up. Sirens cut through the church. I'd had Sterling call the police the moment the poisoning footage played. Officers walked Silas out in handcuffs for embezzling church funds into Beatrice's accounts. Beatrice was arrested for attempted murder and conspiracy, silent and hollow-eyed as they read her rights. Megan fought, screamed, threatened lawsuits, and was hauled out kicking, cursing my name until the doors shut behind her. Only Terence remained, sobbing in the aisle, begging me for another chance. I told him he wasn't going to prison. He hadn't mixed the poison, only watched me drink it. Small mercy. Then I dropped the last check at his feet, made out to Terence Barnes, in the amount of $0. Every asset I owned, the company, the properties, the accounts, $25 million, had already been liquidated and signed over to the West Side Orphanage. The house, the cars, all of it belonged to someone else by morning. He had 24 hours to leave, and nothing to leave with. "You're not a victim's son," I told him. "You're a man who made a choice. You chose the lie. Now you live with the truth." I turned and walked back down that center aisle, past the wreckage of everyone who'd ever called me family, out through the heavy oak doors into blinding daylight. Waiting at the curb wasn't my old work truck. It was a cherry-red 1967 Shelby Cobra I'd bought in cash the day before. The car Beatrice always said was too flashy, too irresponsible for a man like me. I threw my cane in the passenger seat. I didn't need it anymore. I drove away from the church, from the lies, from the family that had never really existed at all. 70 years old, no wife, no son, no empire, and for the first time in 40 years, completely free. I spent 4 decades believing that providing for people was the same as being loved by them. I was wrong. The most dangerous enemies are the ones sleeping under your own roof, and blind trust isn't a virtue, it's a liability. Real family isn't blood or paperwork, it's loyalty. And if you have to pay for affection, you're not loved, you're just renting a lie. I walked away with nothing but my dignity. It turned out to be enough.